So now we have full control of the quality of our ingredient all the way from the raw ingredient through the end product package, and it never leaves our control. So that's very differentiated, and that will ultimately translate to better cost for consumers. The way we see it, it's quality, but it's also cost. We are pushing hard to bring price points down because we want more people to have access.
Welcome to Old Guy Talks to Me, a podcast dedicated to helping guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. Ladies, if you want to know what your guy is thinking, this podcast is for women too. Each week, a special guest helps you create that life you've imagined. We talk anti-aging medicine, personal growth, relationships and hot sex. Yeah, you hear me, getting laid more frequently, other guy vices, and topics that many don't want to talk about but need to. Just because you're getting older doesn't mean you have to be old. Don't want to miss anything? Be sure to subscribe, share, rate, and review this podcast. And be sure to go to www.thestandard.academy/magazine and grab a free copy of our new digital magazine, The Standard Academy, where we talk about erogenous zones, growing hair back, and other things that will help you create that kick-ass life. Now get ready to listen up and share with friends.
This is Oris, the official old guy at oldguytalkstome.com, a podcast dedicated to helping older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love, folks. That's right, those that they love. And a lot of that has to do, well, with health and controlling maybe discomfort, pain, and things like that. And you hear a lot of it in the news. And I'm going to tell you that, not all CBDs are equal. That's right. There's some that are made by your uncle in the basement when he's not doing his moonshine distilling, and there's quality products out there. And I have a special guest today. Today I have Doug Weeks, who's co-founder of Kadenwood, and Doug has been in the consumer products industry for over 25 years. Spent his early career working for Nabisco and Kraft, as well as Henkel, and also Doug has managed brands ranging from LifeSavers, Starbucks, Maxwell House, Capri Sun, Dial, Right Guard, and Core Warder. Now, Doug co-founded Kadenwood in 2019 to create and bring to the marketplace exceptionally high-quality brands using CBD as a key ingredient. We're going to get into a number of the things that their particular products are used for, and especially talk a little bit about the purity of their products as well as some other things. And so, Doug, I want to welcome you to the program. Oh, I failed to mention in the program notes, there's going to be a special link that you can use to get 30% off on the Kadenwood products, and be sure to use that link and save 30%. And those will be in the program notes. So, Doug, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Ars. Really appreciate the time today. I'm looking forward to answering questions and helping educate everybody who's listening on CBD, on our brands, on the differences between CBD and what different products offer. And overall, I'm just excited to be here today.
Sure. Well, we need some extra advice because there's a lot of charlatans. But first, let me start off with the question that I ask all my guests, which is totally irrelevant to the conversation.
Okay.
So, what is the most important thing you've done today so far?
Woo! The most important thing I've done today so far, I think, would qualify as speaking to a founder of a new startup company about her business, and she's absolutely killing it. And I was so impressed. But I always try to speak with a lot of companies in the consumer goods space, startups especially, and I try to offer them the perspective of what large consumer goods companies will be looking for in trying to acquire them over time. And I think I have a unique perspective on both small and big company, and that's something I really enjoy spending my time on.
Okay, so you basically you spent a lot of time in the merger and acquisition space.
Yeah, exactly, and love to play advisor, board member roles, et cetera, like that for different companies that are at that early stage, and I just find it very satisfying work.
Oh, wonderful. So let's get back to our main topic.
Okay.
Sorry to throw you that curveball.
That's all right. I like it.
It wasn't a curveball. It was a pretty easy
one. Yeah.
Pretty easy curveball. Now, let's start with the very basics.
Yeah.
What is CBD?
Yeah. So excellent question. I mean, look, really simply, so CBD, I'm going to make it really simple, and I hope this isn't going too simple for anybody, but CBD is basically an abbreviation that stands for cannabidiol. So it's a term that's, kind of boring, but let's back up to where it comes from. CBD comes from a plant that is a hemp plant. And in really simple terms, the hemp plant has over history either been designed essentially to yield very high amounts of CBD and not THC. And then other people, on the other hand, in the marijuana industry, are trying to build products that use THC. So what CBD is doing is specifically isolating out THC. We don't touch THC. We don't like to put that in. We don't want our products to have some sort of another benefit, let's say, or another.
Sure.
We're not trying to solve for that. If someone wants to do something for either recreational or medical use with THC, that's awesome, but that's not what we do. We specifically isolate our products down to just the CBD component. And then CBD has many wonderful properties about it in and of itself.
Okay.
And we'll get to that in a minute, I'm sure.
Yeah. So when I use a Kadenwood product, I will not be going to the store and buying munchies.
That is correct. I will tell you.
A dozen Krispy Kreme donuts is not in my future.
It is not in your future. And every time I tell somebody what I do, that's the first question I get asked. I'm like, I promise you cannot get high from our products. It's not possible. We have 0% THC. We disclose that on every package that we sell. It's not possible.
Now you said 0%.
Correct.
Wow,
Correct.
That's pretty amazing. And I understand that you have a pretty sophisticated board, and one of them actually insisted on it being a 0% THC.
Correct. So when we started Kadenwood, I can give you a quick history here. We started this company in 2019, and we had a very simple goal. We felt like we could bring the same kind of quality in brands that my partner and I were accustomed to building for other companies. You've probably managed 60 or more brands at this point. All of them you would know. Some of them you mentioned in the opening, but large company brands, and those brands are built over time with inherently very high quality promises, whether it's quality of the supply that goes into it or the marketing and making sure there aren't inappropriate claims, et cetera. We just felt like when we started the company that we could build a company that had multiple brands to address different needs in this industry and do it with, I guess I'd say, a level of quality that no one else is offering today. And so on our advisory board, right off the bat, I think you're referencing Dr. Richard Carmona, who's the former Surgeon General, 17th Surgeon General, and he is the head of our medical advisory board. And so everything we do, whether it's, let's call it product formulation work, products that we're considering launching, we run all these things by him and get his thoughts on how to do it, what to avoid, how could you push it further in this area versus that area, those sorts of things. And so that's a huge differentiator to how our company competes, right up front. That level of expertise is, just, very, very enviable for us to have built, into the company from inception.
Sure, and it's a very high quality board members, which is indicative of the quality of the company, because people, especially, especially with a lot of the stuff that's going on in the news, I think probably the worst case scenario with Theranos. Every board members are very careful about where they associate themselves with.
No, you are absolutely right. We're also, I'd say, we're blessed, honestly, to have a Surgeon General as the head of our medical advisory board, of the former Surgeon General. But we're also very, very fortunate. Our chairman is a guy by the name of Todd Davis, and that name is probably recognizable to some of your listeners, at least. Todd is a very, very successful entrepreneur who started a company called LifeLock about
never heard of him.
15 years ago. He was the guy crazy enough to give you his social security number over the phone or over the radio, TV, et cetera, and say, try to crack it. And the net is he built essentially a company in an industry that didn't even exist. Identity theft wasn't really understood at that point in time, and he made it very clear, provided a solution, and ultimately sold the company for a little over $2 billion. So he's a very, very smart guy, and we're very fortunate to have him as our chairman, giving us a lot of great guidance as well. So, couple of key heavy hitters right at the top of the house.
Right at the top of the house. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So now, what does CBD do? Actually, in terms of what does it actually do? And we're going to get into the uses, but what does CBD do?
Yeah, look, I will. I'll say it like this: the body itself has what's called an endocannabinoid system, and that sounds complicated and whatever. And I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to go down a very complicated path. But essentially, your body has receptors for different things, and I'm going to make it even simpler to say. The reason people take vitamins, right? Why do you take vitamin C or D or something else? It's basically because your body doesn't naturally produce enough of it. And so you end up augmenting it. And this endocannabinoid system is essentially the system in your body that's designed to help with all sorts of different things. The most common that I think is associated with CBD would be anti-inflammatory properties, antioxidant properties, reducing, anxiety, kind of stress, calming of the body, the mind, et cetera. Those are the most common kind of things that people associate with CBD. And it's all because the body absorbs it. And there's several different ways to consume CBD, Orest. And this is also, I think, this is where it gets very complicated for consumers to understand. If you think of it this way, if you said to me, hey, Doug, I have pain, and it's like I'll just use my own example. I have what's called chronic patellar tendonitis. My knee hurts because of something I did about 25 years ago, and I go through cycles where it really annoys me, right? And I will rub on a topical cream with a high amount of CBD in it. But what you have to understand is, for something to work on your body, if you apply it to the skin, you first have to go through a dermal layer or the skin layer,
right?
Then you have to go through a fat layer. Then you get down to where the actual inflammation probably is, but there's even a muscle layer possibly, before you even get down to a joint. And think of how different every one of us is. Every one of us has different percentages of body fat, different muscle mass, different whatever. And so that's really where it gets, I think, confusing. And in general, what I think people have started to I'd say figure out on their own is that higher amounts or higher milligrams of CBD are going to be more efficacious because it just, you have loss as you start
to go through the tissues. Sure.
You go through the tissues, you're going to lose some of it. Right. And so that's one of the most important things for people really to understand.
Yeah. Now, are there specific components in your CBD to actually help penetrate through those layers?
There, yes, is the answer. And there's two parts to answering that question. The first answer is this. One of the things that I would say we've been, again, very fortunate to have a medical panel that not only has the former surgeon general, but also has some other really competent product formulation doctors, experts in that space. And what they have shown us is that essentially by factoring in, I'm just going to call it either the bioavailability is the real term, or the slippage is my term is like how much makes it through.
Right.
And what they've essentially said to us is, you guys need to increase the total milligrams per serving materially versus your competition. The competition is simply not providing enough that by the time you factor in all the loss along the way, you may only be getting 1 or 2 milligrams. That's not going to do anything. That's like taking, I don't know, you have a headache and you only take, half an Advil, but you really should be taking 2. Well, then you suddenly would say it doesn't do anything for you, but you take
Correct.
2 and it works, right? So it's the same. So first off, we put a lot more, we're very, very conscious to be, essentially at the high end of where any of the brands in the industry are playing there. So that we know that a lot still makes it through to an area that, example of pain that really has the area of pain. So that's the first thing we do. The second thing we do is we use a blend of CBD ingredients. And this is where it also gets a little complicated, but there's essentially there are CBD that is an oil in an oil format. There is some that's called an isolate, which is isolated down to essentially a powder. And then there's something else that's called, in simple terms, called it water soluble or highly soluble stuff. And each one of those are formulated differently. What we do in our CBD, because we have the benefit of putting such a large amount in, we use a blend of those different things so that you're getting different it's hitting you at different levels. Like the soluble stuff is accelerating through the skin faster. the higher dose amounts are coming through in the form of the oil or the powder format, and they have a more enduring effect over time.
Okay, so there's so not unlike some medications, there seems to be what you're talking about is really actually almost like a time release factor.
That's kind of that analogy is right. I mean, it's I guess I would say we basically it's not a formal time release, but in concept, yes,
it works out to functionally be a time release concept.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So we talked a little. We've talked about how the CBD works in the body and things like that. What do people use your products for? Because you guys have a wide array of products. So let's kind of go into that.
Sure. So we do have a wide array. We have 5 brands. Our 2 largest brands, one is called Level Select, the other is called Social CBD, but we also are just launching a pet care line, et cetera. So we have a very broad array, but I'd say, to answer your question more directly, if you were just to look at kind of our consumer feedback, why are people using our products? What benefits are they seeking, the most? It's pretty simple that the most common area that people are looking to buy our products for is some form of pain management. And that's either, like my example of kind of some sort of, tendonitis, for example, but there's quite a few people who have either arthritic conditions. There are a lot of people who, and this is not medical advice, but I will tell you, we have a lot of people who will say to us, I know I need something replaced. I need a hip or a knee replaced. And I also know that I don't want to have that surgery multiple times. So I will prefer to apply like one of our level 3 products, which is our highest level of CBD.
Right.
They will use that so that they can sleep through the night and not have pain. They don't, a lot of people will wake up in the middle of the night because they sleep a couple hours and then they wake up. They will use that instead because they're trying to defer something. And they know they want to do the surgery, but they don't want to do it until much later down the road because maybe they're not old enough, et cetera. And so that's an incredibly common example. Arthritic pain is another very common example where people will say, look, I have, either call it hand pain, et cetera. And if I apply this, it reduces the inflammation enough that I feel like I can kind of go through the day. So that is a very common one. The other really interesting area is sleep. And sleep is a complicated, it's a complicated area, meaning there are a lot of people who say that they suffer from not getting enough sleep. And
Sure.
That tends to be correlated to age as well. So in other words, the older we get, you tend to have a more difficult time sleeping all through the night. There's lots of different things, but there are different dynamics, right? Some people will wake up in the middle of the night and their mind starts racing and they just can't fall back asleep. And so that's what we kind of call, anxiety sleep, et cetera. And so what we find CBD does, and we have this on both the Level brand and our social trademark, just with different blends of formulas in there. We have sleep products. We call it Level Z on Level ZZZ, lots of Z's on it on Level. But essentially, people use that product right before they go to sleep. It's available either in a gummy product form, so you just kind of chew or swallow
Sure.
a tablet, something very simple, or it's also in what's called a tincture, which is a small bottle, and you put a little drop under your tongue, and then that will get naturally absorbed as well. But that it just is something that tends to just kind of calm the mind and just keeps you, you just sleep more completely throughout the night.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the second most common need state is around sleep. And there's a third one, which is, I'm going to call it calming or anxiety. So in other words, products that they maybe don't have active ingredients like menthols, et cetera, just maybe flavor and high levels of CBD. And that's really for more calming anxiety. And we've seen over the last 2 years or so, just, a lot of the COVID related stuff, et cetera, that response, a lot of people have been, speaking to the fact that they struggle with some sort of anxiety. And that's what those products tend to be used for.
Sure, that's right. Well, those are 3 very interesting uses: the inflammation and the pain reduction, and the anxiety and the sleep.
Do you need accountability? Are you looking to change the course of your life but have failed to keep on track? Too often we take in information and fail to act. Do you need an accountability program to stay the course? Then go to www.thestandard.academy and find out about my accountability program that goes with my course that helps you find out what you want, why you want it, and how to get it. The accountability program keeps you on track to get results.
So as far as I want to take a step back to the sleep, and I don't know. Sure. Does the CBD that you have, does it get you into a deeper sleep, or just keeps you? Have you known? Are there any studies that talk about the levels of sleep, whether you get into deep sleep or not with your product?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer it this way. What we've done is, I guess I have to call it anecdotal, though we are going to do a clinical study this year on sleep, so I could give you a more quantitative answer. But what we have done, we've had, I'd say, a lot of people now have sleep monitoring devices on their their wrists or the Oura Ring or things of those natures, right? Yeah. So that they've got devices that are doing that, and we have quite a few people who will send us an image of what their sleep pattern was before they were using our products, and then after they were using their product, using our products, right? And so those are, I'm going to call it pseudo quantitative, because it's actually data. It's measured in hours of sleep. And what we would say, if I just kind of gave you a generalization of what that data says, you're getting about an hour more of high quality sleep per night, and that's fairly material to most people.
It's huge. It's huge in terms of getting into the deep sleep, because that's where a lot of people never really get to. A high level of deep sleep, which is a real problem for a lot of people.
It is, and that has such a sleep is, it's not just about, obviously this, but not about just feeling fatigue. It's about how your body regenerates itself and gets ready again, and you live a higher quality life, et cetera, if you have deeper and longer sleep. And so sleep is just a huge area, and we're excited to be building out one of our next new product launches we're working on for next year is a fully comprehensive line of sleep products. And, we're excited about that. We think it really solves, some real problems that people suffer with.
Sure. And then, and the anxiety effects, and what's the evidence on that as far as for anxiety?
Yeah, that one is, I will be really candid with you. It's the hardest one to prove, right? It's really difficult to prove. Pain, you had it and now you don't, or you sleep a little bit more, you don't. And it's a lot easier to tell, right? Calming or anxiety is the one we probably have the hardest time giving you great clarity around. And I'm honestly, spending a fair amount of time thinking about how would I even conduct a clinical study to show you, tangible results. What we have is just a lot of consumers. And I will say, it's interesting. If you look at the age breakdown of who buys our products, I would tell you, if you're talking pain or sleep, the consumer profile of our buyer profile skews much older. And when I say older, I'm saying, 45 plus, right? So I'm not, the older end of the continuum. When I look at anxiety calming, it skews much younger. It tends to skew more into call it 25 to 45 window. So it's almost from a portfolio, it's complementary. It's sort of a different need state, but it's really, people at a younger age are more interested in I guess I'll call it that need state. And so we're working hard to give you some better metrics, and I wish I had them for you today, but I would tell you it's certainly something where we see a lot of repeat usage, and we're happy to at least provide products that are helping people.
Yeah, I think that given everything that's gone on in the last few years, there's certainly a lot of anxiety in the world about and uncertainty as to what is going on. You mentioned also that you have a pet line.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay. I'd love to. So pet's a really interesting area. First off, I'm going to try to say it this way. It's fascinating to see how human behavior is applied to people's pets, right? In other words, they're described as pet parents, right? We're not, you aren't just called like, oh, I have a dog or a cat. You're really called a pet parent now. And
people spend more money on their pets than they do on themselves.
They in many cases, that's absolutely right. And they really also, we all struggle to get great information about, from your pet, because your pet can't talk to you, right? So that's what's interesting, right? So that's kind of, I guess, the right place to start. We're the same kind of properties, though. If you think about just anti-inflammatory properties being the most commonly associated with CBD, that is where when you go look in the pet industry, the two most common need states are essentially what's called hip and joint in the pet world, but that's anti-inflammatory. Same right. Principle as what you're talking about in humans, but applied to animals, and it's hip and joint. And that's typically what you see there. The second one is going to have some language around calming. So we have hip and joint, we have calming. And so calming is more for, a lot of pets, both dogs and cats, but, have some sort of anxiety around something, whether it's, they hear doorbells and they get super nervous and start shaking or whatever, just there's different things, right? However they manifest it. But so those are the two big need states, is either calming or anti-inflammatory for hip and joint. But then what we really do, we have a whole pet division. The person who heads that group for us spent the last 10 years of her career at a public company called Central Garden and Pet. They're a large multi-billion-dollar company with many, many pet products, and she ran their over-the-counter product area. So think when you think over-the-counter and pet, think of things like flea and tick products, which are highly regulated. You're selling a drug that's applied to the animal. Think about pheromone sprays, things that are used for calming, et cetera. So those are the kind of products that, that she had been developing, running, et cetera. And she's now building that, but from an all plant-based solution now using CBD, which is, great. And she blends in other clinically proven ingredients in the pet space to complement the CBD and to make sure that she then has all sorts of veterinarian approval, et cetera. So that's how we go at it. And we both sell direct to consumer right now, and then we'll be going into PetSmart later this year. So it's exciting. It's an exciting time for us.
Yeah, you said something that kind of caught my ear, caught my attention, and I did not realize that the pet space, like for flea and tick products and things like that, you said that's highly regulated.
It is.
I'm actually surprised.
It's highly regulated, and it's actually, not to turn this into a flea and tick conversation, but it's really fascinating because what is one of the most common problems in flea and tick. It again breaks down to not understanding. A lot of people have multi-pet households, right? And a lot of people may have let's just take dogs. They may have a large dog and a small dog, and they may buy flea and tick collars, and they will go and get a flea and tick collar, and they'll say, well, this one's set, they're broken out by weight class. Typically a dog, it'll say, large dogs above, say 65 pounds and small dogs under, call it 15 or 20 pounds. Well, what starts happening is very sad. Someone will say, well, I have two dogs and I'm going to buy a multi-pack at a large retailer. I'm going to buy a multi-pack and I'm just going to buy the bigger one because I'm sure it must just kill more fleas. Well, what happens is it actually kills the dog because your smaller dog can't take that dose, that medical load. So it's a problem in that industry, and we're very, very sensitive to those types of issues. And that's why that industry is highly regulated. And, it really is an OTC drug you're putting on your pet when you start talking about, flea and tick. Wow.
That's I didn't expect to go down this alley, but I'm sure that's like something that most people have no idea about.
They really don't think about it. And the manufacturer, I think straw manufacturers, I'm sure, they put all the dosage, they put the size of the dog on, they're doing everything that they believe they can to make it clear. But you can also understand a consumer on a fixed budget is going to say, well, do I really need to buy, a big one for my big dog and a big one for my small, a big pack for my small dog? Probably not. And you don't, you're not going to get a multi-pack that has, a small dog collar and a big dog collar, because that wouldn't be an item that sold very well. So it's a thing that's really, really important for people to understand in that space. And that's, I think my main point is I'm thrilled that the person we have heading our entire pet opportunity has that level of expertise and knowledge around how you work through products and how you communicate those benefits, et cetera. And that's I think going to bode, very, very well for the build out of that business. And there's one other, I think, I guess I'd say point that's really important when you start talking about our CBD or our approach to the market. We do something that no one else is doing today. We're the only company that we are aware of in the world that is fully vertical from the standpoint of we make our own CBD. We have our own manufacturing facilities that do the actual extraction of of the ingredient CBD. We can break it down into oils or powders, all the product forms that that are used in the industry, and we actually sell just ingredients throughout the U.S. and Europe to many players in the industry. So we have just a pure ingredient business, but then from there we go through to end product manufacturing, meaning we own our own. We've recently acquired our own manufacturing business for end products as well. So now we have full control of the quality of our ingredient, all the way from the raw ingredient through the end product package, and it never leaves our control. So that's very differentiated, and that will ultimately translate to better cost for consumers. The way we see it, it's quality, but it's also cost. We are pushing hard to bring price points down because we want more people to have access.
What I think a lot of people don't realize is there's a great challenge with the quality of substrates in the supplement space. I mean, just, right. I'm not talking about CBD, but I'm talking about all that stuff you buy at the various stores or online or whatever. Yeah. And I have a friend of mine who actually got out of the supplement space because he could not control the raw materials that he was getting. And 1 month he's getting great stuff, and the next month he's getting crap from the same manufacturer. Yep. And so I think it's actually it's kind of interesting in terms from a quality control standpoint that you have the whole process underneath your control.
Correct. Well, and that's exactly the way, the way we thought about it when we started the company was first about brands and building a promise for consumers. And that's how great brands are built. And we started there. And then very quickly, we realized exactly the point you just made, Orest. The quality was too inconsistent if you were to find it just in the marketplace. And whether it was inconsistent or an unreliable supplier where they would say they were going to hit a delivery date, but then not, it was wrong. It wasn't going to work. And so we said, for those reasons, for quality and control, we had to do it ourselves. But we also felt like, and again, this, 3 years ago when we started the company, if you were to go buy a CBD product, it was difficult, I would say, to find anything less than $50, and many times well more than that. And
sure,
we come at this thing from a very different perspective. I'm used to selling, coffee products, whether it's Starbucks whole bean bags sold in grocery stores, or whether it's, Maxwell House in a can, or whatever it is. Like, I'm used to providing, high volume, much lower or affordable price points, and very little product is sold in what we call food, drug, mass club channels, the big major retail boxes in the country. Very little is sold in there that's over, call it $10, $15. There's some, but very little, right? And so we felt like by getting control of that supply chain, not only did we have the quality aspects that we talked about, but we now can drive pricing down. And for example, we've lowered, and I'm honestly really proud of this. We've worked very hard. We've taken, when we first launched, and our highest CBD product was called a level 3 product, and that product,
which is a great product. I've had personal experience with it.
Thank you. But it's that item was sold for $90 when we launched the company for 3 ounces, so $30 an ounce. That is not that's not an inexpensive price point. No. And it also had 1,200 milligrams in the full package. So you were getting 40 milligrams per application on average. Today, that product is now going into CVS as an example. It's going into many retailers, but it's going into CVS. We've started shipping that already. It'll start showing up on shelves there in the next month. And that same 3-ounce product now has 1,800 milligrams or 60 milligrams per serving. So 50% more CBD. And the list price is now $39.99 instead of $90. So we've brought prices. Wow. Everybody's complaining about inflation, and there is real inflation in the market. I'm not arguing that, but I am saying in our industry, we are doing everything we can to crush price points so that we can get more and more consumers to be able to try our products and afford them once they see that what's working for them.
Yeah. Now, Doug, even with the vertical integration that you have from beginning to start, are you seeing challenges with the supply chain issues that's affecting just about every company I keep on talking about?
We absolutely are. And I will say we are addressing it really. I'm just going to call it through funding. I mean, there's no shortcut to this. What we've had to do is identify the items that are the most long lead items. And we are now going out and purchasing somewhere around, depends on the product, but 6 to 12 months worth of supply so that we don't have and then we just have to sit on it to manage it. We hold it in a raw material form. But one of the most critical items, for example, is packaging. So ironically, it may not be the CBD or the fragrances or whatever, but it does quickly come down to things like packaging, because most packaging structures are not made in the US. And so you now end up having, external manufacturing, you have transportation issues, and those things start to really get in your way. So we are buying forward in a material way so that we can manage through that supply chain disruption. And I hope, in a year or two, hopefully that becomes, those things get smoothed out, and then we don't have to carry as much raw material, which ties up a lot of cash when you're running a company that's difficult. But it's the right way to do it right now in order to be a reliable supplier.
Yeah, because I imagine you have to keep, especially as you're increasing your market by going into some big box retailers. You
very much so.
You just can't say like, oh well, we're out this week.
No, that's absolutely right. That's actually we do. We sell our products, and we sell in our own direct to consumer model, meaning our own websites, and we have those, and we provided those to you in a discount to any listeners. But that business for everybody, not unique to us. If you run out of a product, you're accustomed to going online and seeing something that says sold out or something like, you see a little message, and it's a temporary adjustment, and you don't typically lose a consumer for good that way. If you do that to a large retailer, the retailer may give you a little bit of allowance, but very quickly the retailer is going to say, I need a supplier who can supply me reliably, and I'm going to remove your item from my stores.
Well, that shelf space is a lot of people don't realize that shelf space is at a premium.
It's critical. It's critical. The best description there, worst. I always love it when you think about people who are buying for the large box retailers. The way they will talk about their shelf space is to say, "Look, I'm a sophisticated real estate manager. That's all I am. You are the expert in your products. My job is to make sure that my real estate is the most productive it can be, and that means you got to be on shelf. You got to have high margins. You got all those sorts of things, but." They are very clear about what their job is, and it's to make sure that real estate is high functioning.
Right. Absolutely. So, Doug, I really appreciate the overview you gave us, and I just kind of want to wrap it up with you kind of reviewing again what makes your CBD so unique in the marketplace from a quality standpoint, because I just think that's worth repeating here.
Yeah, no, I think so. I will. Thank you. So let me, and it's actually something I didn't even really mention, but so let me just talk about what makes our CBD itself, more unique. So when I talk about owning our own manufacturing, that's certainly a differentiator. But what's not exactly the same. Anybody else who may say that they own something, but what they don't necessarily have are all of the certifications that we've built in to make sure that we can supply with exceptional quality. And what that means I'll kind of throw you some manufacturing terms, which might be relevant to at least some of your audience. But you start off when you're running a manufacturing plant, you have a kind of I'll call it a pretty basic level of certification called CGMP. It basically stands for good manufacturing processes, right? We have that at an ingredient level. Not even we have it at our finished product level. We have it at I'm just talking just ingredient. What differentiates our CBD? We have that. We have something called EU CGMP, meaning we also have it to be able to serve and sell the European marketplace. But then on top of that, we go to something called ISO 9001. That's a whole different level of essentially documentation around your what are called SOPs, your standard operating practices, right? So we document, and the reason for doing that is to have complete replicability of the process all the time, so that you don't have, today it looks like this and tomorrow it looks like this, or you have a little bit more or less CBD. Like, we have tremendous control over the consistency and quality of it. And then from there, we have other, I'd call it retail certifications, things that are in the UK, like there's a British retailer, consortium that we have that kind of certification. So I just say that. Oh, and sorry, of course, for pet, I totally forgot. To the best of my knowledge, we're the only CBD provider who has what's called NASC, which is a pet certification around ingredients. Mm-hmm. We're the only ones who have that. So we have just an extensive level of quality at the raw ingredient level that is, unparalleled. So that's right up front. Then you add in, the Surgeon General as the head of the medical advisory board, advising on, product safety, those sorts of things, which is, a big differentiator as well. and then that full in-house ability to produce our end products, which then gives us a cost advantage in the marketplace. And those really the big reasons why Kadenwood is successful today.
Yeah, I think that just from our conversation today, your commitment to quality and purity is very obvious, because I think a lot of people in this space are in there, jump in for the quick buck or whatever, and don't really look to maintain a quality product out there. There's lots of, I'm sure there's lots of charlatans out there in this space. Lots of them.
COVID helped, I'd say, the industry. COVID got a lot of those kind of players out, which was good, because it just was too difficult for them to maintain and compete. But
sure,
you're absolutely right.
Yeah, there's still some sort of something. And I want to let everybody know that in the program notes, there are links to buy direct from Kadenwood and use the Save 30 promo code to get 30% off. And be sure to go to use those links in the program notes. And so Doug, I want to thank you for coming on board, and learned a lot of things. Was surprised by a lot of things. Learned a lot of things about CBD and the whole process, and actually, never expected to be talking about flea collars when we set this interview. But I'm glad we did. So I want to thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Right. This is Orris, the official old guy at oldguytalkstome.com. Remember, I want you to do, several things. Want you to share this podcast, subscribe, rate, and review. And if you don't like me, I don't care. Just review me anyway. Give me a bad review. I love my trolls. And remember, it's all about creating a kick-ass life for yourself and those that you love. Until next time.
Thank you for joining Dr. Orist and his incredible guest. Like what you heard and learned? Then be sure to do 3 things. 1, subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. 2, share this with someone who may need to hear it. 3, leave a review and rate this podcast. Opt in at www.thestandard.academy/magazine and get our free digital magazine with savings, articles, and deeper dives into cool controversy. Be the guy who takes action. Without action, you're not going to get the results you want. Thank you again, and make it a great day.